Cristiano Ronaldo, from street kid to global icon, the ultimate transformation story. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible transformation stories that will inspire you to chase your dreams. Picture this, a skinny, malnourished boy from a tiny Portuguese island, crying himself to sleep because bigger kids made fun of his accent and his worn-out shoes. Fast forward 20 years, and that same boy has become the most followed person on social media, earned over $1 billion, and transformed his body into a machine that defies the laws of aging. This is not just a football story. This is the most incredible human transformation you'll ever hear. The year was 1985, and in the small town of Funchal on the island of Madeira, Portugal, a fourth child was about to be born into a family that was barely surviving. Maria Dolores dos Santos Viveiros da Aveiros was in labor, and she didn't know that the baby she was carrying would one day become the most recognizable athlete on planet Earth. But here's the shocking part. She almost didn't have him at all. Maria Dolores was exhausted. She already had 3 children, Hugo, Elma, and Katia, and her husband, Jose Dini Severo, was struggling with alcoholism while working as a municipal gardener, earning barely enough to put food on the table. The family was living in a tiny tin-roofed house in one of Funchal's poorest neighborhoods, and Maria was considering terminating the pregnancy. She went to the doctor, begging for an abortion, but the doctor refused. That decision would change the world forever. On February 5th, 1985, Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro took his first breath. Named after Ronald Reagan, the American president his father admired, little did anyone know that this crying baby would grow up to rewrite the history books. But his early years were anything but glamorous. The Aveiro family home was a cramped space where privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford. Cristiano shared a single room with his 3 siblings, sleeping on a bed that was falling apart. The roof leaked when it rained, and during Madeira's harsh winters, the family would huddle together for warmth. Jose Dinas worked multiple jobs, gardening, kitman at a local football club, and anything else he could find. But it was never enough. There were nights when the family went to bed hungry, and mornings when there was no breakfast on the table. But even in this poverty, something special was brewing. From the moment Cristiano could walk, he had a ball at his feet. It wasn't a real football. It was made of old socks stuffed with rags and tied together with string. He would kick this makeshift ball for hours in the narrow streets of his neighborhood, dodging cars, lampposts, and angry neighbors who complained about the noise. Maria Dolores would often find her youngest son still playing in the dark long after dinner time, practicing the same moves over and over again. "Ronaldo, come inside," she would shout, but the boy was in his own world. Even at the age of 4 and 5, he showed an obsession with perfection that would later become his trademark. If he missed a shot against the wall, he would stay there until he made 10 in a row. If he couldn't control the ball with his left foot, he would practice for hours until both feet were equally skilled. School was a different story entirely. Cristiano struggled academically, not because he wasn't intelligent, but because his mind was always on football. His teachers complained that he would draw football pitches in his notebooks instead of taking notes, and during recess, he was always organizing games with his classmates. But here's where his transformation story truly begins, with rejection and humiliation that would have broken most children. At the age of 7, Cristiano joined his first organized football team, Andorinha, where his father worked as a kit man. You might think this gave him an advantage, but it was actually the opposite. The other kids and even some parents whispered that he was only on the team because of his father's job. They called him names, made fun of his patched-up boots, and constantly questioned whether he deserved to be there. The first time Cristiano stepped onto a proper football pitch for a real match, he was so nervous he could barely touch the ball. The grass felt different under his feet, the goalposts seemed enormous, and the other players looked so much bigger and stronger. In his debut match, he hardly touched the ball and spent most of the game chasing shadows. The coach benched him in the second half, and Cristiano cried all the way home. But this is where we see the first glimpse of the mental strength that would later make him unstoppable. Instead of giving up that night, Cristiano went back to the street with his rag ball and practiced until his mother dragged him inside. He made a promise to himself that he would never feel that helpless on a football pitch again. Training at Andorina was basic. They had one proper ball for 20 kids. The pitch was more dirt than grass, and the goals were rusty and bent. But Cristiano treated every session like it was the Champions League final. While other kids complained about the conditions, he embraced them. He learned to control the ball on uneven surfaces, to shoot at goals with holes in the net, and to play through pain when he got kicked on the rocky ground. His dedication was becoming legendary, even at that young age. Parents would point him out to their children, saying, "Look at José's boy, he never stops practicing." But with recognition came jealousy. Older kids would target him in games, giving him harder fouls, trying to intimidate him. Instead of backing down, Cristiano learned to get back up faster, to shield the ball better, and to use his speed to avoid tackles. By the time he was 9 years old, Cristiano had outgrown Andorina. His skill level was so far above his teammates that games became boring for him. He would score 5 or 6 goals per match without really trying. His mother, Maria, knew that her son needed a bigger challenge, but moving to a better club meant more expenses, proper boots, training fees, transportation costs, money the family simply didn't have. This is where José Diniz, despite his struggles with alcohol, showed his love for his son. He took on extra work, borrowed money, and even sold some of the family's few possessions to pay for Cristiano's football education. He would walk for miles to take Cristiano to training sessions because they couldn't afford the bus fare. Those walks became precious bonding time between father and son, with José sharing stories of his own football dreams that never materialized due to circumstances. At age 10, Cristiano joined Nacional, one of Madeira's most prestigious clubs. The step up in quality was enormous. Suddenly, he was training on perfect grass pitches with proper equipment alongside kids who had been receiving professional coaching for years. The first few months were brutal. He was smaller than most players, his technique needed refinement, and his understanding of tactical play was limited. But here's what separated Cristiano from everyone else: his response to adversity. While other talented kids might have been discouraged by the higher level of competition, Cristiano thrived on it. He would arrive at training an hour early and stay an hour late. When the team practiced shooting for 30 minutes, Cristiano would continue for another hour on his own. When they worked on crossing, he would stay behind and practice his headers until the groundskeeper forced him to leave. His obsession with improvement was starting to transform not just his game, but his entire approach to life. He began eating differently, asking his mother to prepare foods that would give him energy for football. He stopped playing with toys and spending time on activities that weren't related to football. Everything in his life became about becoming better at the sport he loved. The transformation wasn't just mental and technical, it was physical too. Cristiano hit a growth spurt around age 11, but it came with challenges. His coordination suffered as his body changed, and he went through a phase where he seemed to trip over his own feet. Other kids laughed at him, calling him clumsy and awkward, but instead of being embarrassed, Cristiano saw this as another challenge to overcome. He started doing exercises at home to improve his balance and coordination. Using old furniture and household items, he created obstacle courses in his tiny bedroom, practicing his footwork until he could navigate them blindfolded. His sister Katia would often find him doing these exercises late at night, sweating and focused, completely absorbed in his self-improvement. At Nacional, Cristiano's talent was becoming impossible to ignore. He was scoring goals that left coaches and spectators speechless. His speed was exceptional, his ball control was mesmerizing, and his determination was unmatched. But perhaps most importantly, he was developing the mental toughness that would later make him one of the most clutch performers in football history. There was one particular match that became legendary in Madeira football circles. Nacional was playing against their biggest rivals, and they were losing 3-0 at halftime. The coach had almost given up, but Cristiano pulled his teammates together in the dressing room. At just 12 years old, he gave a speech that inspired his team to fight back. In the second half, he scored 4 goals, leading Nacional to a 4-3 victory. But what happened after the match was even more significant. Instead of celebrating with his teammates, Cristiano went straight to the training ground and practiced the shots he had missed in the first half. His coach found him there 2 hours later, still working on his finishing. When asked why he wasn't celebrating the comeback victory, Cristiano replied, "I missed 3 easy chances in the first half. If I had scored those, we wouldn't have needed a comeback." This perfectionist mentality was becoming his defining characteristic. Every mistake was analyzed, every weakness was identified and addressed. At an age when most kids were playing video games and watching cartoons, Cristiano was studying football matches on television, taking notes on how professional players moved, how they positioned themselves, how they struck the ball. His reputation was spreading beyond Madeira. Scouts from mainland Portugal were starting to hear about this exceptional young player on the island. But Cristiano's next challenge would be his biggest yet, and it would require the most difficult decision his family had ever faced. When Cristiano was 12 years old, Sporting CP, one of Portugal's biggest clubs, invited him for a trial. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it came with a price that seemed impossible for the Aveiro family to pay. If Cristiano was accepted, he would have to move to Lisbon, over 600 miles away from Madeira, to join Sporting's academy. The costs were enormous: academation, education, living expenses, and there was no guarantee he would make it as a professional footballer. For weeks, the family discussed and argued about the decision. Maria Dolores was terrified of sending her youngest child so far away at such a young age. Jose Diniz wanted to support his son's dreams, but knew the financial burden could destroy the family. Cristiano's siblings had mixed feelings. They wanted to support their brother, but also feared losing him. But Cristiano himself never wavered. He knew this was his chance to transform his life and his family's situation forever. He promised his parents that he would work harder than anyone, that he would make them proud, and that one day he would pay them back for their sacrifice. The determination in his 12-year-old eyes convinced them to take the biggest gamble of their lives. The trial at Sporting was unlike anything Cristiano had ever experienced. The facilities were pristine, the coaching was professional, and the other players were the best young talents from across Portugal. For the first time in his life, Cristiano wasn't automatically the best player on the pitch. There were kids who were faster, stronger, more technically gifted, and who had been receiving elite coaching for years. But what the scouts and coaches quickly noticed wasn't his technical ability, it was his mentality. While other talented kids might coast through training sessions, Cristiano attacked every drill like his life depended on it. When the coach demonstrated a new technique, Cristiano would be the first to volunteer and the last to stop practicing it. When training ended, he would ask for extra sessions. When other kids complained about the physical demands, Cristiano asked for more. After a week-long trial that felt like a lifetime, Cristiano was called into the academy director's office. His heart was pounding as he sat across from the man who would determine his future. The director looked at him for what felt like hours before speaking. "Cristiano, we've decided to offer you a place in our academy. You're not the most talented player we've seen, but you have something that can't be taught: the hunger to improve every single day." The moment Cristiano heard those words, his life changed forever. He called his family immediately, and for the first time in months, there were tears of joy in the Aveiro household. But the real transformation was just beginning. Moving to Lisbon at age 12 was like moving to a different planet. Cristiano had never been away from his family, never lived in a big city, and never been surrounded by so much wealth and opportunity. The Sporting Academy was like a football paradise: multiple pristine pitches, state-of-the-art gym facilities, professional medical staff, and coaches who had played at the highest level. But the transition was brutal. Cristiano was homesick, lonely, and constantly doubted by coaches and teammates who saw him as just another island kid trying to make it in the big city. His Madeiran accent made him stand out, and some players mocked the way he spoke. His clothes were different, his mannerisms were different, and his intense training approach made some teammates uncomfortable. The first few months were the hardest of his young life. He would call his mother crying almost every night, begging to come home. Maria Dolores would spend hours on the phone, encouraging her son to persevere, reminding him of his dreams and the sacrifices the family had made. There were nights when she almost gave in and told him to come back to Madeira, but something in Cristiano's voice always convinced her that he wasn't ready to quit. At the academy, Cristiano's daily routine was completely different from anything he had experienced. Wake up at 6 a.m., breakfast with the team, morning training session, academic classes, lunch, afternoon training, dinner, study time, and lights out at 10 p.m. Every aspect of his life was structured and monitored. For a kid who had grown up with complete freedom to play football whenever he wanted, this regimentation was initially stifling. But gradually, Cristiano began to see the structure as an advantage. He realized that the professional environment was designed to maximize improvement, and he embraced every aspect of it. While other academy players might skip optional training sessions or coast through physical conditioning, Cristiano approached everything with maximum intensity. His first coach at Sporting, Aurelio Pereira, later recalled, "I've coached hundreds of young players, but I've never seen anyone with Cristiano's determination to improve. He would ask me to explain the same technique 5 different ways until he understood it perfectly. He would practice a skill for hours until he could do it with both feet, with his eyes closed, under pressure." Most kids his age wanted to learn fancy tricks to impress their friends. Cristiano wanted to learn everything that would make him a more complete player. The transformation in Cristiano's game was rapid and dramatic. Within 6 months of joining Sporting, he had improved his first touch, his passing accuracy, his tactical understanding, and his physical condition. But more importantly, he was developing the professional habits that would later make him one of the most consistent performers in football history. His diet became carefully planned and monitored. Gone were the days of eating whatever was available. Now every meal was designed to fuel his performance and recovery. He learned about nutrition, hydration, and recovery techniques that were cutting edge for youth football at that time. While other teenagers were drinking soda and eating junk food, Cristiano was measuring his protein intake and timing his carbohydrate consumption around training sessions. Sleep became sacred to him. He learned that recovery was just as important as training, and he developed sleep habits that he would maintain throughout his career. While other academy players might stay up late talking or playing games, Cristiano was in bed early, ensuring he got the rest his growing body needed to adapt to the training demands. But perhaps the most significant transformation was mental. The lonely, homesick boy from Madeira was developing an unshakable confidence in his abilities. Not arrogance, confidence. He began to believe that through hard work and dedication, he could achieve anything he set his mind to. This belief would become the foundation of everything he accomplished later in his career. And his breakthrough moment came during a match against Benfica's youth team, Sporting's biggest rivals. Cristiano scored a hat trick that left everyone in the stadium speechless. But what impressed the coaches most wasn't the goals. It was his performance when Sporting was trailing 2-1. Instead of panicking or trying to do everything himself, Cristiano elevated his game and inspired his teammates to fight back. His leadership qualities were emerging even at such a young age. Word of his performances was spreading throughout Portuguese football. Coaches from other clubs were starting to ask about the young winger from Madeira who was tearing apart youth competitions. But Cristiano wasn't satisfied with dominating at youth level. He wanted to test himself against the best players in the world. At age 16, Cristiano made a decision that shocked everyone at Sporting. He asked to train with the first team. Most academy players would wait to be invited, but Cristiano approached the coach directly and asked for the opportunity. The coach was initially hesitant. The physical and technical demands of training with professional players could overwhelm a teenager and potentially set back his development. But Cristiano's persistence paid off. He was invited to join a few first-team training sessions, and his impact was immediate. Not only did he hold his own against players who were earning millions of euros, but he also pushed them to train harder. Veterans who had been going through the motions in training suddenly found themselves trying to keep up with a 16-year-old who treated every drill like a championship final. His first team debut came sooner than anyone expected. Due to injuries and suspensions, Sporting needed fresh legs for a cup match, and the coach decided to give Cristiano his chance. The moment he stepped onto the pitch wearing Sporting's first team jersey, he knew his life had changed forever. This wasn't youth football anymore. This was professional football, with thousands of fans, television cameras, and scouts from the biggest clubs in Europe watching his every move. The match was a revelation. Cristiano played with a maturity and composure that belied his age. He created 2 assists and came close to scoring several times, but what stood out most was his fearlessness. He wasn't intimidated by experienced defenders, he didn't hide from the ball under pressure, and he demanded the ball in crucial moments. After the match, the Portuguese sports media were talking about the emergence of a new star. But fame and recognition brought new challenges. Suddenly, Cristiano was being watched and analyzed by everyone. His every move on and off the pitch was scrutinized, expectations soared, and the pressure to perform consistently at the highest level became intense. Many young players have been destroyed by early success and the pressure that comes with it. But Cristiano used it as fuel for further improvement. He knew that one good match didn't make him a professional footballer. He had seen talented players disappear after brief moments of success because they stopped working as hard. Cristiano was determined not to become another cautionary tale. If anything, his first taste of first-team football made him even more dedicated to improvement. His training routine became even more intensive. He would arrive at the training ground earlier than anyone else and leave later than everyone else. He hired a personal trainer to work on his physical conditioning outside of team training. He studied video footage of the world's best wingers, analyzing their movement patterns, their decision-making, and their techniques. But the most significant change was in his self-belief. The shy, homesick boy from Madeira was gone, replaced by a young man who believed he could compete with anyone in the world. This wasn't arrogance born from ignorance. It was confidence built on thousands of hours of deliberate practice and continuous improvement. The transformation was also physical. Through proper nutrition, professional training, and natural development, Cristiano was becoming a physical specimen. His speed increased, his strength improved, and his endurance reached levels that impressed even the team's fitness coaches. But what was most remarkable was how he maintained his technical skills while becoming more athletic. Many players lose finesse as they gain power, but Cristiano somehow enhanced both simultaneously. His family noticed the change whenever he returned to Madeira for holidays. The skinny, awkward boy they had sent away was becoming a confident young man with the physique of an athlete and the mindset of a champion. But despite his growing success, Cristiano never forgot where he came from. He would still visit his old neighborhood, play football with local kids, and help his family financially whenever possible. At 17, Cristiano had become Sporting's youngest ever first-team regular. His performances were attracting attention from clubs across Europe, but he wasn't satisfied with just playing regularly for Sporting. He wanted to test himself at the highest level possible. He dreamed of playing in the Premier League, La Liga, or Serie A against the world's best players. The opportunity came in the most unexpected way. Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, was scheduled to play a friendly match against Sporting to inaugurate their new stadium. For Cristiano, this was more than just a friendly match, it was an audition for his dream job. The night before the match, Cristiano couldn't sleep. He had watched Manchester United for years, admiring players like Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, and Roy Keane. The thought of playing against them was both thrilling and terrifying. He spent hours visualizing the match, imagining different scenarios, and mentally preparing for the biggest opportunity of his young career. When the match began, Cristiano played like his life depended on it. He tortured Manchester United's experienced defenders with his pace, skill, and unpredictability. Every time he got the ball, something exciting happened. He completed dribbles that left world-class defenders on the ground, delivered crosses that created clear scoring opportunities, and showed a level of flair and creativity that had the crowd on their feet. But what impressed the Manchester United players most wasn't his technical ability, it was his mentality. Despite being just 18 years old and playing against some of the most successful players in football history, Cristiano showed no fear or intimidation. He demanded the ball in difficult situations, took on multiple defenders, and played with a confidence that suggested he belonged at that level. After the match, something unprecedented happened. The Manchester United players approached their manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, and told him he had to sign this young Portuguese winger. Players like Roy Keane, who rarely praised anyone, were raving about Cristiano's performance. They had never seen a teenager with such a combination of skill, pace, and mental strength. Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the greatest managers in football history, made an immediate decision. He instructed Manchester United's officials to begin negotiations with Sporting for Cristiano's transfer. The boy from Madeira, who had left his family at 12 years old, was about to join one of the biggest clubs in the world. The transfer negotiations were complex and intense. Sporting knew they had a special talent and demanded a significant transfer fee. Manchester United was willing to pay, but they also knew that Cristiano's development would require careful management. Moving to a new country, a new league, and a new level of pressure could make or break a young player's career. For Cristiano, the decision wasn't difficult. This was the opportunity he had been working toward his entire life. The chance to play in the Premier League, learn from Sir Alex Ferguson, and compete in the Champions League was everything he had dreamed of. But saying goodbye to Sporting, the club that had given him his first professional opportunity, was emotional. On his last day at Sporting, Cristiano spent hours walking around the training facilities that had been his home for 6 years. He remembered arriving as a 12-year-old boy, homesick and uncertain. Now he was leaving as an 18-year-old professional footballer, ready to take on the world's best league. The transformation had been complete, but he knew it was just the beginning. The move to Manchester United in 2003 represented the biggest step in Cristiano's transformation journey. He was no longer just a promising young player. He was now a multi-million-pound investment by one of the world's biggest clubs. The pressure was immense, but so was the opportunity. Arriving in Manchester was another culture shock. The city was completely different from Lisbon or Madeira, colder, rainier, and more industrial. The Premier League was faster, more physical, and more competitive than anything Cristiano had experienced. The media attention was overwhelming, with every aspect of his life subject to scrutiny and criticism. His first season was a mixture of brilliance and frustration. Moments of genius were followed by periods of inconsistency. The physicality of English football was challenging. Defenders were stronger and more aggressive than anything he had faced in Portugal. The pace of the game was relentless, with no time to dwell on the ball or execute elaborate skills. But Sir Alex Ferguson saw something special in the young Portuguese player. He recognized that Cristiano's apparent selfishness and desire to beat multiple defenders was actually a sign of his competitive drive and self-belief. Instead of trying to suppress these qualities, Ferguson channeled them into more effective team play while maintaining Cristiano's individual brilliance. The transformation under Ferguson's guidance was remarkable. Cristiano learned when to take on defenders and when to pass quickly. He developed his crossing ability, improved his decision-making in the final third, and began to understand the tactical complexities of team play. But perhaps most importantly, he learned how to handle pressure and criticism. The English media and fans were initially skeptical of this flashy young winger who seemed more interested in stepovers than end product. He was criticized for being selfish, for diving, for being more style than substance. Many predicted he would struggle to adapt to the Premier League's demands and would eventually return to Portugal as another failed foreign import. But criticism only motivated Cristiano to work harder. He spent extra hours in training, working on his final ball, his shooting accuracy, and his defensive contribution. He studied video footage of successful Premier League wingers, learning how they balanced individual skill with team effectiveness. He worked with sports psychologists to develop mental resilience and focus techniques. The breakthrough came in his second season. Cristiano began to combine his natural flair with consistent end product. His goals and assist numbers improved dramatically, and he started to influence big matches with crucial contributions. The boy who had been criticized for being all style and no substance was becoming one of the Premier League's most effective players. But the real transformation was still to come. In 2006, something happened that would change Cristiano's entire approach to football and life. Portugal faced England in the World Cup quarterfinals, and Cristiano found himself in the middle of one of the most controversial moments in World Cup history. When his Manchester United teammate Wayne Rooney was sent off for stamping on an opponent, Cristiano was seen winking at the Portuguese bench, suggesting he had influenced the referee's decision. The English media and fans were furious, calling him a cheat and questioning his character. When he returned to Manchester United for the new season, he faced hostility from fans who had previously supported him. For many players, this level of criticism and hostility might have been overwhelming, but for Cristiano, it became the catalyst for the next phase of his transformation. He realized that to be truly great, he needed to be mentally stronger than anyone else. He needed to turn criticism into motivation, hatred into fuel for improvement. That season, 2006-07, Cristiano played the best football of his career to that point. He scored spectacular goals, created countless opportunities for teammates, and led Manchester United to the Premier League title. But more importantly, he showed a level of mental toughness that impressed even his harshest critics. Every boo from opposing fans seemed to make him play better. Every criticism in the media seemed to motivate him to greater heights. The transformation was becoming complete. The skinny boy from Madeira was now a muscular, confident young man who thrived under pressure. His technical skills had been refined to perfection, his physical attributes were at their peak, and his mental strength was unbreakable. But Cristiano knew he hadn't reached his ceiling yet. His obsession with improvement intensified. He hired personal trainers, nutritionists, and recovery specialists. He invested in the latest training equipment and recovery technologies. His home became like a private training facility with gym equipment, recovery pools, and analysis systems. Every aspect of his life was designed to maximize his football performance. The 2007-08 season was when Cristiano truly announced himself as one of the world's best players. He scored 42 goals in all competitions, a remarkable number for a winger, and led Manchester United to both the Premier League title and the Champions League victory. His performances were so outstanding that he won the Ballon d'Or, officially recognizing him as the world's best player. But winning the Ballon d'Or wasn't the end goal for Cristiano. It was validation that his transformation journey was working. The boy who had been laughed at for his accent and his worn-out shoes was now officially the best footballer on the planet. But instead of being satisfied, he was hungrier than ever for more success. His physical transformation during this period was remarkable. Through intense training and perfect nutrition, Cristiano had developed a physique that was both powerful and athletic. His body fat percentage was incredibly low, his muscle definition was perfect, and his athletic performance metrics were off the charts. He had transformed himself into a physical specimen that looked more like a professional athlete from multiple sports rather than just a footballer. But the mental transformation was even more impressive. Cristiano had developed an unshakable belief in his abilities and an immune system against criticism and pressure. He thrived in big moments, performed better when stakes were higher, and never backed down from challenges. This mental strength would become his defining characteristic throughout his career. The success at Manchester United attracted attention from Real Madrid, the club that calls itself the most successful in football history. Real Madrid had been trying to sign Cristiano for years, and in 2009 they finally succeeded with a world record transfer fee. For Cristiano, joining Real Madrid represented the ultimate validation of his transformation journey. Moving to Real Madrid meant joining a club with the highest expectations and the most pressure in world football. Real Madrid fans expect to win every match, every trophy, every year. The media scrutiny is intense and the competition for places is fierce. Many players have failed at Real Madrid despite being successful elsewhere because they couldn't handle the unique pressures of playing for the club. But Cristiano was different. By this point in his transformation journey, pressure had become his friend. The higher the stakes, the better he performed. The more criticism he faced, the more motivated he became. Real Madrid wasn't a challenge to overcome, it was the perfect environment for him to reach his full potential. His first season at Real Madrid was spectacular. He scored 33 goals in 35 matches, breaking numerous records and establishing himself as one of the greatest signings in the club's history. But what impressed observers most wasn't his goal scoring, it was his leadership and mentality. Despite being new to the club, he immediately established himself as a leader who demanded excellence from himself and his teammates. The rivalry with Barcelona and Lionel Messi added another dimension to Cristiano's transformation. Having another player of similar ability and achievements created a competitive dynamic that pushed both players to unprecedented levels of performance. Instead of being intimidated by Messi's success, Cristiano used it as motivation to become even better. This period of his career showcased the complete transformation from the street kid in Madeira to a global superstar. Cristiano wasn't just scoring goals, he was breaking records that had stood for decades. He wasn't just winning trophies, he was redefining what was possible for an individual player. He wasn't just famous, he was becoming a global brand and cultural icon. His dedication to improvement never wavered, even as he achieved unprecedented success. If anything, success made him even more demanding of himself. He would analyze his performances obsessively, identifying areas for improvement, even after scoring hat tricks. He would celebrate victories briefly before immediately focusing on the next challenge. The physical transformation continued throughout his time at Real Madrid. As he entered his late 20s and early 30s, an age when most footballers begin to decline, Cristiano somehow maintained and even improved his physical condition. His training routine became legendary. Thousands of repetitions of technical skills, advanced recovery methods, and a diet plan so precise it could be measured to the gram. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of his transformation was how he adapted his game as he aged. The explosive winger who relied on pace and dribbling gradually became a more complete player who could score from anywhere on the pitch. He developed his heading ability to world-class levels, improved his free kick technique to become one of the best in the world, and enhanced his penalty taking to near perfection. This adaptation wasn't accidental. It was the result of careful planning and incredible self-awareness. Cristiano recognized that he wouldn't be able to rely on pace forever, so he developed other aspects of his game to maintain his effectiveness. He studied the careers of players who had succeeded into their 30s and 40s, learning from their experiences and applying those lessons to his own career. The mental transformation was equally impressive. The young player who had sometimes let emotions affect his performance became incredibly composed under pressure. He developed an ability to perform in clutch moments that was almost supernatural. Whether it was a penalty kick in a Champions League final or a crucial goal in the dying minutes, Cristiano seemed to elevate his performance when it mattered most. His time at Real Madrid was filled with individual and team success. He won 4 Champions League titles, 2 La Liga titles, and countless individual awards. He broke Real Madrid's all-time scoring record, became the Champions League's all-time leading scorer, and established himself as one of the greatest players in the club's prestigious history. But statistics only tell part of the story. The real transformation was in how Cristiano had become a leader and winner who could single-handedly change the outcome of matches. His teammates looked to him in difficult moments, opponents feared him in crucial situations, and fans around the world were inspired by his dedication and success. In 2018, at the age of 33, when most players are winding down their careers, Cristiano made another shocking decision. He decided to leave Real Madrid and join Juventus in Italy, one of the most tactically sophisticated leagues in the world. Many observers questioned whether he could adapt to a new league and maintain his performance levels at his age. The move to Juventus represented another phase of his transformation journey. Serie A required different skills, more tactical intelligence, better positioning, and greater efficiency in front of goal. The Italian media and fans were skeptical about whether a player in his 30s could adapt to their league's unique demands. But Cristiano's transformation continued. He quickly adapted to Italian football's tactical requirements, learned the language, and embraced the culture. His performances were outstanding, helping Juventus win league titles and establishing himself as one of the best players in Serie A history, despite joining the league so late in his career.